With the Canadian Premier League producing so many top Canadian talents, they've finally done it with a goalkeeper, the 21-year-old Emil Gazdov, who's been with Pacific FC ever since he was 17 years old, and has now made a major step up in joining the MLS, leaving the CPL and Pacific behind by heading to CF Montreal and staying in Canadian football with a very exciting transfer, and also I truly believe a very smart and well thought out transfer from the young Canadian goalkeeper and his agent. As CF Montreal of course has that history and deep rooted history of developing young Canadian footballers within their squad as well as developing them and moving them on, but also has a great goalkeeping room filled with talented Canadian goalkeepers. And this is an exciting move for a young 21-year-old in Emil Gazdov. But I also think there's a fair question to ask around this move as well as most transfers. But this one especially for a young Canadian goalkeeper. Will Emil Gazdov to CF Montreal be a successful transfer? And yes, there's many ways to look at and looking at success in terms of a transfer within the world of football. But for me, I truly believe Emil Gazdov will be a success at CF Montreal and as well as in the future in terms of this transfer. But I'll be breaking that down throughout the video, guys. Let me know your thoughts on that question as well. But we're going to dive into the transfer details because there's so much to talk about in terms of details around this transfer before we get on talking about if this will be a success. Because Pacific FC have managed to sell Emil Gazdov for a fee of $200,000, adding on $50,000 in add-ons. But they've also added on a 20% sell-on clause to this deal. But yes, that fee is very exciting. Getting $200,000 plus $50,000 for a young 21-year-old Canadian goalkeeper who's nowhere close to his prime, as well as for a club record fee for Pacific FC, is very exciting. Don't get me wrong. But 20% in a sell-on clause, I think is a very underrated part about this deal. As Emil Gazdov's 21 years of age, yes, he could go on and become a starter for CF Montreal and have a great career, but I can see Emil Gazdov leaving CF Montreal very soon and heading off to European football a lot sooner than most Canadians expect. And that 20% sell-on clause will look very pretty and pay off in dividends very soon, and a lot sooner than we think. But also, he's managed to sign a deal through 2025 season and of course through the 2026 season, having club options on there as well as the 2027 and 2028 season. And I think that all depends on so many different factors, of course, but depends on Jonathan Sirois' situation, on if he continues to be the starter or if he leaves, as well as Emil Gazdov, if he develops sooner than expected and if a European club sees that potential and talent and decides to take that gamble on him and signs him to a European side sooner than 2027, of course. But it's a very exciting deal, and managing to get him onto a long-term contract is very important. But that question again of will he be a successful transfer at CF Montreal, I think is a yes. I think it's a yes for so many different reasons. But what is a successful transfer for Emil Gazdov at CF Montreal? That is a huge part. And I think success for Emil Gazdov at CF Montreal is either moving and producing this year as the number 2 goalkeeper behind Jonathan Sirois, and next year or the year after, pushing Jonathan Sirois for the number 1 role. And of course, successful would definitely be him earning a move to European football. And I think there's no better club in the MLS. Yes, that might be rogue, but I don't think there's a better club in the MLS, more specifically for a Canadian, to earn a move to Europe than CF Montreal for so many different reasons. But what they've done with young Canadian talent historically has been incredible. Yes, Ismail Kone, yes, Alistair Johnston, among others, of course, that I'm sure I'm missing out, but their ability to move Canadian talent to play very well in the first team and even to just continue with the first team or even move to Europe is nothing short of incredible. CF Montreal are the best club at developing top Canadian talent, whether it's moving them on, playing well in the MLS, and just becoming a top MLS starter. CF Montreal have always had a great Moneyball system of doing extremely well with Canadian talent. And there's no better place to look than right now in their goalkeeping department. Whether it's been James Pantemis, who has left Portland Timbers, whether it's been Jonathan Sirois, who is now the current number 1, Sebastian Breza, who's a solid number 2, or bringing in Emil Gazdov. Goalkeeping-wise, they are very set and very exciting. But looking at the goalkeeping room, I think it's very interesting for Emil Gazdov, which might be the right word to use. I think there's a lot of excitement around that goalkeeping room, and I think there's a huge plus around Jonathan Sirois with Emil Gazdov. And you might wonder why, because Jonathan Sirois is, of course, a huge pillar on why Emil Gazdov won't be the number one starter at CF Montreal, because Jonathan Sirois is younger, he's a Canadian international, but I think Jonathan Sirois, having that potential and having that as well as already done his time in the CPL, of course, coming and having loans with Valor FC, gives him a lot of knowledge of knowing Emil Gazdov's situation. He knows what Emil Gazdov's coming from. He's been in the CPL himself. Jonathan Sirois has done that legwork in the CPL and knows what Emil Gazdov has had to do from a early age to be able to get to this point. So I think Jonathan Sirois is going to do a great job in helping out the development of Emil Gazdov, and I think that's a huge smart move from Emil Gazdov to be able to learn from someone like Jonathan Sirois and to be able to integrate himself very well into the squad as not an immediate starter, not even pressure to be that number 2, but being able to be that number 3 and learn off some talented Canadian goalkeepers in Breza, who's had multiple loans, as well as Jonathan Sirois, who is a Canadian number 3, who is also the starter at CF Montreal and has had spurts as one of the better goalkeepers in the MLS, but also has had time as a CPL player and has had to do that CPL route as well. So it's going to be huge for Emil Gazdov to be able to learn off a former CPLer and more specifically someone in his position. And the fact Emil Gazdov doesn't have to get thrown into the firing range immediately is a huge plus. But also looking at what CF Montreal have had to do with CPL players in the past and currently is very exciting. Like I said, Jonathan Sirois, but also Joel Waterman. What they've done with Joel Waterman has been nothing short of exceptional. Turned him into a very good MLS starting center back, as well as a Canadian international on the regular who seems like a lock in that depth chart. Whether it's as a number 4 option or a number 5 option, Joel Waterman has turned into a very consistent and regular center back, who's of course came from Cavalry and has now done great things for CF Montreal. And they've also dipped back into the CPL pool by sending players out on loan, as well as finding a former CPLer in Victor Laturi from Scotland as they're set to revive his footballing career as well. CF Montreal have never looked over on the CPL. They've never jumped or missed their opportunity. They've already been very smart picking the right talent in the CPL, and they've always continued to do that. I think they've done it very well with Victor Laturi. I think they've done it very well with Jonathan Sirois, and of course with Joel Waterman. And I think Emil Gazdov will follow in the footsteps of Jonathan Sirois, and I think with the potential, the ability, the talent, and at such an early age of 21 years old, Emil Gazdov has all of the attributes, all of the characteristics to go on and be a very successful goalkeeper and to succeed with his time with CF Montreal. Guys, I'd love to hear your thoughts on the video as well as the transfer for Emil Gazdov to CF Montreal. What you guys think of, will it be a success or not? As well as smash that like button, drop a sub. Let's continue to move to 600 subscribers, and I'll see you guys for the next one. Peace.